Hello and welcome to today's European SharePoint, Office 365 and Azure Community webinar, the third of a series of 6 Azure Week webinars. My name is Laura and I'm delighted to be joined by Alan Kinnan, who will present the topic, Embrace the Best of Both Worlds with the Power of Azure Hybrid. Remember to join in on the conversation about today's webinar and more on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @EuropeanSP and our hashtag is ESPC23. Don't forget to check out the Resource Centre. This is updated daily with the latest blogs, ebooks, webinars, and how-to videos. Simply visit sharepointeurope.com and click the Content tab at the top. Continue your learning by joining us for our next webinar, which is a 20-minute mini webinar called Azure Static Web Apps in a Nutshell, which takes place tomorrow, Wednesday, July 19th from 11 a.m. to 11:20 a.m. CEST. For full details, check out sharepointeurope.com/register for webinars. You can now watch the European Power Platform Conference 2023 showreel video from Dublin last June. This past June, over 1,200 Power Platform professionals gathered in Dublin for the European Power Platform Conference 2023. Check out our amazing showreel video full of the highlights from Dublin last month. We loved hearing from our attendees and seeing everyone have a great time. This showreel is a brief extract of all the learning, development, networking and fun that was had over this amazing 4-day event. Next year, we are taking the European Power Platform Conference to Brussels. Alongside 1,500 of your professional peers, you can expect world-class expert guidance to help you succeed in your projects and career, and an unforgettable experience in the beautiful city of Brussels. Register your interest for the European Power Platform Conference 2024 in Brussels at sharepointeurope.com/European Power Platform Conference. Europe's premier Microsoft 365 and Azure Technologies Conference occurs November 27th to 30th in Amsterdam. With access to over 100 world-class speakers, over 120 expert sessions, there is endless knowledge to gain at ESPC23. Microsoft technologies are advancing rapidly, so stay in the know by attending ESPC23 to hear from the greatest on the very latest. Make time for your 2023 professional development. Get your early bird discounted tickets for ESPC23 in Amsterdam this November. Join us and learn to better master Microsoft 365 and Azure at ESPC23. Visit sharepointeurope.com to secure your tickets at this discounted price. After the webinar, we will have a questions and answers session. Type any questions you might have into the questions window. Questions will be selected and answered at the end of the presentation. This webinar will be recorded and added to the Resource Centre, where you will be notified by email when it is available. And now I'm going to pass you over to our webinar presenter today, Alan. Hello, Alan.
Hi, Laura. Good morning. So good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining my session today. I'm just going to share my screen and we can get started. Should be sharing there now. So thanks so much for the introduction, Laura, and thank you everyone for joining my session today. So as Laura mentioned, my session is about Azure Hybrid and it's entitled Embrace the Best of Both Worlds with the Power of Azure Hybrid. Quick introduction to myself. So my name is Alan Kinnan. I'm a Microsoft Azure MVP based out of Dublin, Ireland. I work with a cloud solution provider here in Dublin called Micro Warehouse, and we help other Microsoft partners to design and develop Azure and cloud hybrid solutions. If you're interested, I do have a blog website. I try to put a focus on Microsoft partners and managed service providers in particular. So my blog website details are up there along with my social media details. So if you do want to connect after the session and reach out, I'd be happy to chat to you. So quick agenda today, it's a very short webinar, so I'm just going to do a little introduction about Azure Hybrid as a strategy first of all, and then I'll talk about some of the more common Azure Hybrid services, focusing on Azure Arc, Azure Stack, Azure Site Recovery, and Azure File Sync. And then after that, we will have a short Q&A session. So let's start with what is Azure Hybrid. So before we start, I thought I'd like to maybe set some context and perhaps debunk some of the common misconceptions that some people have about the cloud. So the cloud is not just someone else's computer. That's really a very simplistic way of looking at it that really doesn't appreciate the full scope and the full benefits of cloud computing. So rather than thinking of the cloud as somewhere where you work, think of it as a way of how you work with those innovative technologies to achieve operational efficiency and accelerate your business growth. So I'd like to maybe think about these two statements throughout the presentation today as we talk about Azure Hybrid services. So what is Azure Hybrid? And why is hybrid strategy so important? So first and foremost, it gives you flexibility. It gives you freedom to deploy workloads to whichever environment you prefer. That might be on premises, that might be at the network edge, or it could be in the cloud. And nowadays, of course, we have the concept of multi-cloud, where you can utilize multiple different cloud platform providers, such as Microsoft Azure or Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud Platform. That's just to name but a few of them. And some customers might have some very strict regulatory and data sovereignty compliance regulations that they need to follow. So a hybrid strategy empowers those organizations to keep their data in a very specific location and governed under very specific controls that may not be possible without a hybrid cloud strategy. So having access to cloud technologies, you're always ensuring that you have access to the best-in-class technologies that are available, and that will help you modernize your applications and provide business continuity and service resilience. So Azure Hybrid is not a single service, but really it's a collection of different technologies. It enables you to combine various different technologies to support your organization's hybrid cloud strategy by encompassing different elements such as on-premises operations, network edge deployments, and multi-cloud platforms. And this is all unified under a single control plane called Azure Arc, which is a service used to manage your hybrid services, regardless of their location. And we'll start talking about Azure Arc first of all. This is a very important service. As I mentioned, it's a control plane that will allow you to manage a cohort of different services, but within a single unified management control tool set that's managed through the Azure portal. With Azure Arc, you can leverage those familiar Azure services that you might be using already in Azure Cloud and use those same tools to manage and monitor your resources consistently, regardless of where they're deployed. This provides a seamless management experience across your hybrid and multi-cloud infrastructure. Azure Arc, therefore, is your single management toolset, allowing you to manage your workload resources, be they hosted in Azure Cloud, in Azure clouds like AWS or GCP, or hosted privately in data centers or on premises. And having a unified set of management tools for your environments will have massive advantages for your organization. Some of these include centralized asset management and access control, centralized monitoring of your resources with Azure Monitoring, the ability to apply consistent governance with Azure Policy, the ability to apply security management with Microsoft Defender for Cloud, and the ability to apply threat detection analysis with Microsoft Sentinel. Azure Arc supports a number of different compute and data services, and I want you to remember these services can be deployed outside of Azure. These are not just Azure cloud services. They can be deployed on premises, and they can also be deployed in other clouds. And today, there's support for server management for both physical and virtual servers, supporting Windows and many Linux distros running on premises or in other clouds. Kubernetes clusters running on premises with VMware or Azure Stack HCI, or in other clouds like AWS and Google. We've got SQL Server support, and then the platform-based service SQL Managed Instance is also supported. And in preview currently today, there is also support for PostgreSQL and for virtual machines. So for example, you can now deploy a virtual machine in your on-premises VMware environment through the Azure portal. That's a pretty cool feature, I think. Now we talk a little bit about Azure Stack and what that entails. So Azure Stack is a portfolio of different hybrid technologies that's really expanded over the years. And this allows organizations to extend Azure services and Azure capabilities to their on-premises environments or to edge locations. It will enable a consistent experience across both Azure and local infrastructure. So today we have 3 core products in the Azure Stack range, and I'm going to talk about each of these 3 in more detail now. The first one would be Azure Stack Edge. And this is a cloud-managed physical appliance that you deploy to your network edge. It will provide compute, storage and machine learning capabilities, allowing you to run AI inferencing, IoT, and data processing workloads closer to the source of the data. Secondly, we have Azure Stack HCI, which is a hyper-converged server solution for running virtualized workloads in your on-premises environment or your data center. It combines software-defined compute, storage, and networking capabilities, providing a scalable and a cost-effective platform for running traditional and modern applications. And then finally, we have Azure Stack Hub, which is a cloud-native integrated system that allows you to build and run modern cloud applications on premises. And this provides consistent Azure services and APIs, enabling you to develop and deploy applications using the same tools, the same processes, and DevOps practices that you would use in Azure Cloud. So just a little more about each of those Azure Stack options. So again, Azure Stack Edge, first of all, is a hardware appliance that you order and manage through the Azure portal. It's designed as an edge solution, so this appliance sits outside of your corporate network at the network edge, which is optimal for solutions that require low latency connections or would need large data transfers. So some common use cases on Azure Stack Edge would be IoT solutions, low latency machine learning, and offline data operations. Azure Stack HCI then is an on-premises hyper-converged infrastructure solution. This combines compute virtualization and storage capabilities into a single software-defined platform. This can be deployed onto new hardware or validated existing hardware from a range of supported hardware vendors. By leveraging Azure Stack HCI, organizations can achieve a flexible and efficient infrastructure solution for their on-premises workloads. And this really bridges the gap between on-premises and cloud environments, providing a unified management experience and enabling seamless integration with Azure services for hybrid cloud scenarios. Use cases for this would be modernizing your on-premises architecture whilst benefiting from the ability and scalability of the cloud. This is a great solution for remote branch offices where local infrastructure is still required, but can be managed centrally from the cloud. And then Azure Stack Hub is a fully unified hybrid cloud platform that allows you to run Azure cloud services directly on premises. It allows you to create and manage your own autonomous cloud environment within your own data center. So this is sort of like having your own private Azure data center. And with Azure Stack Hub, you can leverage the same tools, the same APIs, the same services that you would in Azure Cloud, which again gives you that consistent experience for building and deploying modern cloud applications, hosting them privately on premises. Use cases for this would be where you need to modernize cloud applications and run them on premises, either in a connected or disconnected state from the internet and your Azure cloud environment. A couple more services I wanted to focus on today. First up would be Azure Site Recovery. And Azure Site Recovery is Azure's business continuity and disaster recovery service. And this is specifically for servers. This service works by replicating your disks between a primary and a secondary or disaster recovery environment, keeping your data continuously synchronized. This allows for a complete failover of services to an alternate disaster recovery environment, ensuring business can continue with a minimal loss of data and a minimal amount of disruption. Azure Site Recovery can be considered a hybrid service as it supports replication between Azure regions, also from on-premises to Azure and from AWS to Azure. This really allows organizations to implement a multi-cloud or hybrid cloud strategy while ensuring data protection and disaster recovery capabilities across those different cloud providers. And then Azure File Sync was the next one I wanted to talk about. So Azure File Sync is a centralized file storage solution that leverages Azure's serverless file share solution, which is called Azure Files. And this allows for a distributed Windows-based file server environment by synchronizing on-premises file servers with Azure Files. This is useful for branch office deployments by consolidating file data centrally in Azure Storage, whilst providing synchronized local copies to each branch location. Another useful feature of Azure FileSync is something called cloud tiering. This allows organizations to free up local storage capacity by tiering less frequently accessed files to cloud storage only. And also by keeping your master copy of data off-site, this also serves as a good BCDR solution for your files and folders, as your data can be quickly rehydrated from cloud storage and accessed in just a matter of minutes after a disaster. So just to summarize some key points about Azure Hybrid. So Azure Hybrid is all about leveraging the most suitable technology for your organization's workloads. It allows you to balance control, security, and scalability to your needs. By utilizing a common set of cloud-based tools and services, you can efficiently manage and monitor distributed solutions, be they public cloud hosted or privately hosted. Azure scalability and security services really enhance these solutions and bring business continuity and resilience at affordable and, importantly, predictable costs. So overall, Azure Hybrid empowers organizations to strike the ideal balance between cloud agility and on-premises control, ensuring that workloads are flexible, scalable, secure, resilient, as well as performance and cost optimized. So that was it from my slides. We can do the Q&A section now, if there's any questions from anyone.
Thanks a million, Alan, for a great presentation. So we'll get into the questions and answers part now. So should you wish to ask a question, please do feel free to type it into the Q&A box now. So I'm just looking here. There doesn't seem to be any questions. So maybe you have answered people's questions already. So I might just leave it for another minute or two to see if any questions pop up in the meantime.
Absolutely.
Okay, there doesn't seem to be any questions coming in, so I guess that means you are off the hook, Alan. So
okay.
On behalf of the ESPC community, I just want to extend a big thank you again to you, Alan, for taking the time today to carry out this webinar. We really do appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
So that is the end of today's webinar. You can find this webinar and more at sharepointeurope.com/resource center. That is it for today, folks. Thanks again to everyone for joining us today.